Today we're going to look ahead to our algebra unit, review some equation basics from last year, and work on some equations in algebra that we're going to be doing this year. So to go over some key terms first, an equation is a mathematical statement that sets two expressions equal to each other. So whatever is on the left side completely equals everything on the right side. Inverse operations are operations that undo each other. So they're opposites. So adding and subtracting are inverse operations. Multiplying and dividing are inverse operations. Be sure to fill in your blanks on your paper with the words that are missing from this slide. So let's review basics of how to solve an equation. Sometimes it might help to draw a line down the center of your equal sign. That way, everything on the left side of this line has to be equal to everything on the right. So I see in this problem, x minus 6 equals 22. The goal of solving an equation is to isolate the variable. We want to get x by itself. I have a minus 6 that's with my x, so I'm going to do the opposite and add 6. If it's an equation, if I add 6 on the left side, I have to add 6 on the right side. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0. So these cancel out, and I'm just left with x, which is what I wanted. Now I solve on the right. 22 plus 6 is 28. So my answer is x equals 28. Now, I could always check my work to see if I got that correct. So I can do that by plugging the value in for x. So I got 28 to be x. So my original equation is x minus 6 equals 22. If I take my answer of 28 and plug it in for x, minus 6, 28 minus 6 is 22, so the left side equals the right side. Let's go ahead now and go over the second one. Here again, remember, when a number and a variable are touching, that means multiplication. So this equation is saying 3 times x equals 39. So since I see multiplication, I'm going to divide on both sides by 3. We always divide by the number that is with your variable, because 3 divided by 3 is 1, or 1x. They cancel out. And 39 divided by 3 is 13, so x equals 13. All right, so now we're going to solve two-step equations. So all this means is that we are going to do 2 steps, or 2 operations, to get x by itself. I'm still going to go ahead and draw my line to separate my left side of the equal sign and right side of the equal sign, to make sure that I'm doing the same thing on both sides. So when we have a 2-step equation, the first number we want to get rid of is the constant. We want to get rid of the number that's furthest from the variable. So when I look at the left side, I have the numbers 2 and 4. I'm going to get rid of the 4 first. It's the constant, it's the number by itself. Since it's a positive 4, I'm going to subtract 4. If I subtract 4 on the left side, I need to make it balanced, equal, and subtract 4 on the right side. 4 minus 4 is 0, so those cancel out. Bring down what we have left, which is my 2x, equals 12 minus 4 is 8. Now I'm at a 1-step equation. Here I see 2 times x equals 8. So since I have multiplication, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I'm just left with my 1x by itself, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. My second one is a little different because I have different operations. I'm going to separate my sides. When I look at the left side, I have a 5 and I have a 3. The constant is going to be the 3. It's by itself. It's not really attached to the x. Since it's a minus 3, I'm going to do the opposite and add 3, but remember to both sides. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. They cancel out. Bring down what I have left, which is x divided by 5, equals 7 plus 3 is 10. Remember, this bar means to divide. So since I have division in my problem, I need to do the inverse, which is multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. We're going to multiply by the number that's with your variable. 5 is the number with the x, so 5 is the number we want to get rid of. When we do the inverse, your numbers always cancel out, so I'm just left with x. And 10 times 5 is 50. So x equals 50 in that equation. Again, solving equations, we always want to get the variable by itself. We always use inverse operations. And we always get rid of the constant first, the number completely by itself. Use the first two examples to help you solve these problems. Solve number 1 and then enter your answer. Okay, so let's check number 1. Again, I'm always doing inverse operations. Since I have a minus 6, the inverse or the opposite is to add 6. These 6's cancel out and I'm left with 4x equals 46 plus 6 is 52. I need to divide both sides by 4, and we should get x equals 13. Make any corrections before moving on. Go ahead, solve number 2 and enter your answer. Again, I'm going to draw my line down to help me separate my left side and my right side. Here it looks a little different because your x is not first. I still want to get rid of the constant first, which is 8. That's the number by itself. It's a positive 8, so I need to subtract 8 on both sides. 8 minus 8 is 0. Bring down my 5x. 53 minus 8 is 45. I see multiplication, 5 times x. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And I get x equals 9. Solve number 3 now. All right, so we're checking over number 3. Again, I'm going to get rid of that 12 first by subtracting. Again, on both sides. Got to keep that equation equal. 12 minus 12 is 0, so those cancel. I'm left with x divided by 3 equals 20 minus 12 is 8. Again, if I have division, I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides. These 3 cancels out, and I'm left with x equals 24. These were our mild problems. Our level 1 are easier ones. So if you are confused or have a question, raise your hand and ask before moving on. So now we're stepping it up and going from mild to medium. So here you'll notice that all of our equations now include integers, so positives and negatives. We're still using inverse operations, and we're still getting rid of that constant first. So take a minute, solve number 1, and then enter your answer. Okay, so this first one, again, I'm going to separate my sides. I have negative 2x minus 8, so I want to get rid of that 8 first. I'm going to do the opposite and add 8 to both sides. So my 8's cancel it out, and be careful here, I'm left with negative 2x equals negative 20 plus 8. They're different signs, so I subtract, and I'm going to get a negative 12. Now I need to divide, but I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so x equals positive 6. Take a minute now and solve number 2. All right, so I'm going to get rid of that 15 first. It's the constant. I'm going to do the opposite and subtract 15 from both sides. They cancel out. I'm left with 10x equals negative 25 minus 15. If we look, these are really same signs. I have a negative and a negative, same signs, add and keep. That's going to give me negative 40. Divide both sides by 10, and I get x equals negative 4. Solve number 3 now. Split my left and right side. I'm going to get rid of the 20 by subtracting. 20 minus 20 cancels out, and I'm left with 4x equals 8 minus 20. I have different signs here, so I'm going to subtract. And I have more negatives, so it's going to be a negative 12. Divide both sides by 4, and we get x equals negative 3. Great job if you're getting these correct, and make sure you ask for help if you have questions or don't understand. All right, and our final level of solving two-step equations is our spicy. So these are the most challenging and include some different numbers. See if you can go ahead and solve number 1. All right, so the only thing that looks different with number 1 is that we have a fraction with your variable. We're still solving the same way. So since I have a minus 6, I'm going to add 6 to both sides. My 6's cancel out. I'm left with 1/2 x equals 12 plus 6 is 18. Still the same process. I have multiplication, 1/2 times x, so I'm going to divide both sides by 1/2. 18 divided by 1/2 is 36. If you did it by hand, you should have done 18 or 18 over 1 divided by 1/2. Remember, to divide, we keep, change to multiplication, and flip. And 18 times 2 is 36. All right, number 2. Go ahead and solve. All right, so let's see how you did with number 2. So the first thing we need to do right here, this is different. I still want to get rid of the number that's completely by itself. And this time, that's the 3. So I have x plus 4 all divided by 3. So I need to get rid of that 3 first by multiplying. If we're dividing by 3, the inverse would be to multiply by 3 on both sides. So these 3's, since I did the inverse, are going to cancel out, and I'm left with x plus 4 equals 12 times 3 is 36. Now I have x plus 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides, and I get x equals 32. That was a tricky one, so if you got that right, that's awesome. Fix any mistakes now. And go ahead and try number 3. All right, so number 3 is a little different. You could have solved it 2 ways. One way is to get rid of this negative 6. It's the constant. It's completely by itself. There's no x. So since it's a minus 6, I'm going to add on both sides. These cancel out, and I'm left with 5x plus 2x equals negative 21. Now, I see that these two, I have 5x's and I have 2x's, so I can actually combine those to be 7x's equals negative 21. Divide by 7, and I get x equals negative 3. Great job if you were able to get that correct. If not, that's okay. Go ahead and make sure you have everything written down correctly, and raise your hand if you have any questions.